Hey, Uplifters. Before we get into this conversation, I want to tell you where we are. So, this episode was recorded live at Uplifters Live this March 13th at Caveat in Manhattan with 100 purpose driven midlife women together in one room. You're going to hear the energy, you're going to hear the crowd, and I hope you feel like you're right there with us because this conversation about money, about investing, about building the future we want, this is the kind of talk we need to be having out loud together. Before we even get into the conversation, though, you're going to hear my 17-year-old daughter, Savannah, who performs our show's theme song, perform it live with a brand new set of lyrics that completely caught me off guard and left me in tears as I started this episode. Let's go.
All right, now we're going to put this all together. Ready? Painted water sunshine with rosemary and thyme. Dwelling not perplexing, though you find it vexing. Toss a star and hover, be your own best lover. Relish in a new prime, plant a tree with springtime. Dances hollow hindsight, bring the sun to twilight. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up. Standing in the pink lights, everything feels sacred. Dozens of women at the peak of their lives. Capture and remember all of us together, fighting with the others to make a better life. This is our vocation, this is revolution. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up, whoa.
Being a parent's a super weird thing. You live with a person for 18 years, seeing them every day and thinking about every little twist and turn. And then there becomes a point where they launch. And it's such a big and beautiful and awesome transition, and we're all in the middle of it. That was special. Thanks for enjoying that with me. I'm going to get my shit together and try to host this conversation. I'm really, really excited about this, and this is an episode I've wanted to do for a really long time, because if there's anything that I feel like we struggle with as uplifters, it's how do we monetize and how do we make sustainable that which we are so passionate about? Because we have passion in spades. We have creativity pouring out our ears. We have communities, we have ideas, we have dreams. But figuring out how to actually give them life and let them breathe and survive. I can't promise we're gonna solve that in the next 20 minutes. I wish. But I'll tell you in 3 years, maybe I'll know more. What we are gonna do is we're gonna talk openly and honestly about it, and we're gonna look at it through a few different perspectives with our three guests. So our first guest will be Katie Sella. When I talked to Katie about her work, she explained to me, and forgive me if I butcher the exact quote, it's my memory of the quote, how about that? She said, I'm on a mission to get more women investing because that's how we create the future. By spending our money on companies that matter to us and moving change with our dollars. Meanwhile, I was talking to my friend Lorraine Pendleton, who is an investor. I'll tell you a little bit more about both of them. She was talking about her work raising money for women's sports through the venture that she started. And at the same time, I have this amazing friend who I look to all the time. How the hell does she do it? Tracy started an incredible brand on her own. Let me tell you about each of them, and we're going to talk to them about their thoughts on money. And I don't like talking about money, so I've done my best to take your questions to guide this conversation. So a little about Katie. Katie Sella is a partner at Coro Capital, CEO of Baltoro Consulting. She is a startup accelerator mentor. She's a pitch competition judge. She is an adjunct business professor, and many, many more things that you'll hear about in the course of this conversation. Lorene Pendleton was named by Marie Claire one of the 50 most connected women in America. Worth magazine called her one of 16 financial powerhouses. Black Enterprise described her as one of 20 angel investors you should know. She is a member of Pipeline Angels with 200 plus women investors, over 4 million invested in 40 plus companies that they're supporting. She's an investment partner in portfolio funds, raising multi-millions in dozens of companies. She's a former entertainment attorney for folks you might have heard of, like Prince, Spike Lee, the Notorious B.I.G. estate, Stevie Wonder. Wow. As I mentioned, she's raising her own fund right now at 125 Ventures to support women's sports. I'm really, really thrilled to have both of them here with us today. And as I said, my friend Tracy Luckow is joining us too. Tracy is an entrepreneur, like so many of us, who started her career in corporate roles, primarily in CPG, that we met at Weight Watchers. Tracy, with all of her experience and all of her wisdom and all of her passion, took her decades of experience and channeled them into a radical idea, which was to disrupt the whipped cream industry. Not alone, but with her best friend, her sister, Lori Guttimer. And Tracy's been incredibly successful. We had a pretty honest conversation about what success really looks like and feels like, so maybe she'll share some of that here too. We could all learn a lot by talking to Katie, Lorene, and Tracy. Hi, welcome, friends. Thanks for being here. To kick things off, I have a sort of question for each of you, and I want to begin with you, Katie. When you said that about shaping the future, tell us how you arrived at that mission and why that feels so important and urgent.
Before being an investor, I was the chief revenue officer of a couple startups. With one of them, I was fundraising. I started a virtual call with a male investor from Boston. It was an older male investor from the area. I said hello, and he said, "Good morning, suburban housewife." Yes. I tell this story at every event I go to rile people up because if he was saying that to me as a middle upper class white woman with a master's degree, what was he saying to other people, and what was he thinking about everyone else? In that moment, I thought, I'll wait for people like you to die out, but we cannot wait. We have to actually do something. There's that piece and one other to keep it short. When you look at the public markets, IPOs are happening. We look at our 401ks. There's moderate growth. But then you look at the private sector and see a company like SpaceX that's going to exit for $1.5 trillion. And all of that value and the returns are going to private investors. And this is happening over and over. Who are those investors? They are the men. Very few women are on the cap tables. So female founders struggle to raise. We now have more women who are investors, and we're here, but we still have to raise. And it's predominantly from old white men. Yeah. My mission is to get women funded, but also get more women funding. If we do not open up our checkbooks, our daughters and our granddaughters will be back in the kitchen. So that is why I say build the future you want to see. We have to do it with our money. Along the way, we can make a lot of money too.
Pretty exciting. So Tracy, you've been fundraising and you walked into your brand building with a lot of information about how to market a product, how to do research about the product, how to package it maybe. What has it been like for you as a founder to fund this venture?
Definitely had a lot of experience walking into entrepreneurship. I did everything at various companies from R&D, innovation, strategy, marketing, sales. One thing I never touched was finance. And certainly the idea of raising money never entered the playbook that I was taught. The only raising money I had to do was to go to our CEO and explain why I deserved a bit of the pie that my larger company just had somehow, and I wasn't clear on how. So this was a very new thing for both me and my sister when we first started. There's things that I'm glad I didn't know, and then there's things that I wish I knew faster. I am glad I didn't know the percentages and the odds of success of raising money, because we went in there confident, we went in comfortable, and that increased our odds. Not seeing the hill in front of us was a better thing to do. Not to not study, but before you do your homework. But that was a very helpful thing for us. The things that we along the process was that every conversation is a transaction. It's two-way. When we go into investor discussions, our goal is to succeed and walk away with what we need to fuel our business. What we didn't realize was all the other stuff we would get from that, which is you do need to be very buttoned up. You need to know every detail of who you are, why you are that way, what your competitors are doing, where you're successful and where you're not, and how you're going to address that. Having those conversations and getting pushed is so valuable as much as the money. That has been our experience so far.
Oh, that's super helpful. Lorene, hi. So I want to talk to you about the pivot from law to investing and why women's sports specifically.
So it happened 13 years ago. I was at home Sunday getting ready for the work week. I had the television on the background. It was Soledad O'Brien when she was on CNN. She did this show, Black in America, different segments. One of them was about entrepreneurship. She said how African Americans get less than 1% of VC dollars. Women get less than 2%. I literally stopped in my tracks. I was like, what? I found out that was the case. Unfortunately, those numbers haven't changed much if you fast forward 13 years. I decided I want to do something about it. I didn't invest in private markets. I didn't know anything about it. I heard about Pipeline Angels. I was second cohort to graduate. We have more than 650 women who've gone through that program and have gone on to do incredible things. I applied, and that launched me investing my own money. And I did a fund with Portfolio, 2 funds. Collectively, those funds are $15 million. And now I have my own fund. I decided, launched my fund 2 years ago, but started working on it 4 years ago. I saw what was happening with women's sports. And I have season tickets to New York Liberty. I saw how just the demographic of people coming. Men were bringing their sons. That had never happened. I've been going to New York Liberty games when they were playing at Madison Square Garden, so I'm an OG. They actually played at Radio City. Look it up. On the stage of Radio City, like crazy. So saw what was happening, and I'm all about data. I'm a former lawyer, prove it. And Deloitte comes out with a report about women's sports and how it's going to grow 300% through 2030. You see what was happening with media rights, merchandise, 600%. And I said, I'm going to focus on women's sports. My fund isn't solely on just women's sports, but that's a big part of it. So sports, media, entertainment, intersection of tech, women's sports being a big part of it. And now, I got something yesterday. I'm just laughing because now everyone's jumping on this bandwagon. I'm with private wealth at Merrill Lynch, and my advisor sent me a white paper on women's sports that now, Merrill Lynch is putting out. And then someone sent me something from JP Morgan Chase today about women's sports, and everyone's talking about women's sports. And when I started talking to people, when I was formulating the fund, they literally said to me, no one watches women's sports. And now today we have that shirt together. X has that, and it sells out. So I was ahead of the curve. But yeah, women sports is growing. It is an opportunity. It's still undervalued if you compare it to men's. The most valuable women's team is in New York Liberty, which is valued at $470 million, which is what the men's, granted NBA makes more money, but I think the highest team is about $14 billion with a B. So if you're an investor, you want to get in when the asset is undervalued and complete trajectory. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
Love that. Pretty inspiring, right? I love listening to people's verbal reactions to all of you because I think we all get a sense of possibility and activation through that. When I first talked to Katie about this conversation, I was like, my hope is that by the time the panel is over, people have already started investing. So before we get that far, what do you, from each of your seats and from your unique vantage points, what do you wish women, specifically midlife women, understood about raising or accessing capital?
That it's a lot easier than it seems. I feel like it's very opaque, and it's something that's not really talked about. Like when you started, you said, I don't really like to talk about money. We're very conditioned to not talk about money, and I think women are very conditioned to save and be less risk tolerant, so we put our money in safe places. I'm forgetting the exact year, but I think it was like the 1970s-ish when women could first open up a credit card. So when I look at that and say, like, okay, I look at my generation and the generation before me, people didn't even really have access to do any of this. So I feel like we are where we are, so let's all own that. But also, there's a ton of opportunities. Certainly, you could invest directly with a startup, but there are a lot of different platforms now where you can make very small investments. Like I started by making a $1,000 investment, and that felt really big for me. But
What kind of platform are we talking about?
Yes, okay, I'll make a plug for it. Play Money is one, so letsplaymoney.com.
Literally, I had no idea. Anybody else?
Yeah. No.
She's like, okay. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, that's
Yeah,
nice. What?
and it's a female multi-time founder who started it. Her goal is to activate angels. So that's one. Also through Koru Capital that I'm a partner at. So when we get allocation in a deal, for example, we get $5 million into a deal. We, with our fund, will put in $3 million, but we'll open, it's called a special purpose vehicle, SPV, for $2 million, and we have decreased the minimums to $2,000. But this, like we say, like one of our happy moments is getting our GP's mom into SpaceX for $5,000, right? So we are going into AI for legacy industries, a Series A to D, which is a little de-risked. So it's like a little bit de-risked. It's still a risky asset class. But our goal is to democratize access to these elite deals. So we're not the only ones, right? Like there are tons of groups out there. And I'm sure you know a bunch of like Portfolia. I think it's like a 10,000
How Women
minimum.
Invest.
Yep. How Women.
Yeah, there's a lot of different platforms.
So that's what I would just say is like, this is a real possibility. It's not hard. And my thought is, okay, with $2,000, if I put it in, I would love a return someday. But the more important thing for me personally is that I'm voting with my dollars of the type of business I want to see in the world, especially AI right now. Because AI is here, obviously, and all these tech companies will be in the future. If a different demographic is choosing what companies get to live and be our future, and we're not part of it, I would rather put a little bit of my money in, maybe never get a return, but I want those companies to succeed. I want those founders to succeed because multi-time founders might go under, but what they learn from it, what they build in the future is really powerful too. You can change someone's life with a small amount of money.
It's a more strategic
Yeah.
return. It's a return, just not a direct. How about you, Tracy?
Taking it from the other angle, raising money is like, has anyone ever played double dutch? I did a lot of that as a kid, and when you're doing double dutch, there's no good time to jump in. You just gotta close your eyes and go for it. Trying to raise money is like that too. So I have been told throughout my journey, we're COVID baby business. We started in 2020, and we were told, now's a bad time to raise money. Look at all of the things that have happened in this world since 2020, whether that's wars or tariffs or many other crazy things. It's never a good time. There's never a moment to wait for that double dutch to call for you. You have to own it and jump. If you have a good product and you really believe in what you're doing and have data to back that up, any time is the right time.
Love that. And Lorraine.
Although I'm a VC, I have to raise money too. I'm an entrepreneur because I have my own fund. Anyone who has a venture fund has to raise money. Some people eat Wheaties for breakfast. I eat no's for breakfast. You've got to get comfortable with the word no, which I had to get comfortable with that. And it's hard, but I found my investors. I found people who understand what I'm doing. And now I'm actually getting a ton of inbound because now women's sports is so hot. When I was beating this drum and nobody wanted to listen to the song I was playing. So that's been interesting. The bottom line is yes, I'm allocating capital, but I'm also an entrepreneur. I have to raise money and I have to get a return on investment. When I'm looking at deals or companies to invest in, I am going to go through that company like a fine-tooth comb because, there are people who believed in me. When a lot of others didn't. I want to make sure they get a return. Where we make the money is when those companies do incredibly well. It's hard, but what I would say is it's the hardest thing I've ever done. This fun. I did a fun with some other people, a lot lower, but I know what I'm doing. I know my thesis and what I'm doing and the importance of it. It was incredible to find out 2 years ago when Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, they were the top 10 draft. People knew them. They were already multimillionaires. They go out and get drafted the WNBA and pays $77,000 their first year. You know, the NBA player, who's a male, number one, got $12 million. They were more brand recognizable than he was. For women who say, I don't know about sports, like, I don't want to invest in your fund because I don't know anything about sports. I said, do you know about inequality? That's the thing. Women are risk averse. We need to know everything before we do something. Men jump in. You know, we got to get out of that mindset. Why is it that Caitlin Clark, household name, making $77,000? It's appalling. And like, even if you don't know something about it, learn about me. I'm a lawyer. I spent years as a lawyer. I worked with some of the biggest, you know, content creators. I worked at William Morris agency. Like, I have the skill set, and I've been an investor for 13 years. I've invested in some incredible companies. So, you know, like, use your power. You know, my friend Barbara Clark, who's one of the most prolific angel investors, she's like, write the damn check. She said that in the Boston Globe. She's invested in about 125 companies, has a family office. She says she's sick of people not writing the check, particularly women. If you have to do it $1,000 or whatever, if you don't have the money, there's three types of capital: financial, social, and human capital. So you see a founder, help them. If you're an expert in finance, help her. If you're good in marketing, help her. Or you connect her. That's your social capital. And there's other ways that we can do this. If you have the money, you should write the check.
Lift and be lifted. How many of you have been told no when asking for what you want? Money, support. We all survived. And we learned something. So let's keep asking. For those of you listening to the podcast, we all raised our hands. Shocker. I know you probably did on the other end of the line too. So one of the things I think that's confusing for a lot of us is, how do you evaluate options? How do you choose where to spend money? And how did you choose what to launch with and know you felt like you had a disruptive, winning idea? Katie.
My background has been in sales and marketing. I look at companies and I think, if I was leading this company, who would my customers be? What would my sales process look like? Is the founder thinking that way? Or do they have a total different model that's fabulous and I need to learn from them? What I often see is that's where most of the founders in early stage fall down. I'm looking at that and thinking about, is this really big problem? They're going to have a moat or defensibility with their solution. Those are the things that I look at. I talk to a lot of investors, and for others, they only want to invest in the spaces that they worked because they feel comfortable, whereas others have a deep connection with the founder. They're investing because they believe in the person. You have to determine for yourself which path you want. I've invested as an angel in a bunch of companies. Sometimes I knew the founder and sometimes I didn't. You know, I found it through the platforms. I've used both approaches.
Tracy, how'd you decide what to build?
Just hearing everyone's stories this morning, their common theme is that every person who goes out and creates has an insight and passion. My sister and I saw that baristas in coffee shops all over New York City and, you know, beyond, milkshake parlors, you know, people were making these incredible, beautiful, multi-sensor swirl of flavor and color whipped creams that you couldn't find in the grocery store. I love battle in business. I worked at Pepsi, so I knew clearly who my competitor was. I worked at Danone. I knew clearly who my competitor was. I love a business where there's one giant and another mover coming in to take a different approach on the same food. We could not believe Reddi-wip was the only thing in town. We wanted to disrupt it and take inspiration from baristas who were doing all of those beautiful swirls at a time when coffee shops and food service was basically a big question mark because it was COVID. We wanted people to have that, and the world was so heavy and serious, we wanted people to have little happy pleasures at home. That was the insight. The passion is that it was my sister's favorite food growing up. It gave her a lot of joy. She would pile it high on top of pancakes and waffles, and it just always brought a smile at a time that we were feeling very heavy and serious. I love inventing things. I just love creation, and my big companies never let me do that to the max, and I always felt stifled. forced to do incremental changes and not big changes. The way that we disrupted our category is we invented a nozzle that we fill with fruit juices and natural flavors. When you press it and spray the whipped cream, it swirls flavor right into the whipped cream. Kind of like a barista lives inside the So having a patent, having a unique technology was really what made us feel comfortable that there was one competitor, there was one, very small footprint for manufacturing. It was hard to get into the category, and we had something unique that no one else could take.
Great, thank you.
I just want to give her kudos. I love that. I mean, she said insight and passion. You had the insight working at Pepsi, and Danone, your sister, has the passion. Really incredible. And
How do you decide what to invest in?
someone like that, she's not in the area that invests, but an entrepreneur who thinks outside of the box and has insight and passion, domain expertise, which she clearly has. They see things differently. She created a defensible product. Like, she has IP. Not all companies have IP. There's a company that I recently invested in, and it's started by two NWSL famous soccer players. They were part of the group that won 2 back-to-back World Cups and 2 gold medals. They created their company in 2019. They were part of suing, to get equal pay, the U.S. national team. They created this company. They have the #1 soccer podcast. They have a merchandise line, also a social network around women's sports, and just I've known them it'll be 2 years in June. I got to really know them before we literally are making an investment. They were domain experts because they lived in that world and played soccer their whole lives, and then pivoted to business. I love what they were doing. Those are the things, looking for founders who see where the ball is headed. Just, and looking at the market, the bottom line is the signals are here. Women's sports is growing. From a demographic point, they're younger, have money, they're diverse, and then men are coming in. Men are starting to watch women's sports. So it's a growing with soccer. We're going to have the World Cup here. We're going to have the Women's World Cup in 2031. To give you a stat, how many people do you think are fans of soccer or football? Over 3 billion people in the world. For the NFL, it's about 160 million. The NFL is by far the most lucrative league. Their media rights are $10 billion a year. The individual teams make $400 million. It's just one team on the media rights every year. Soccer is becoming more well-known here in the United States. So upside, they are bona fide celebrities. Those are the things that I look for when I'm making an investment decision. The growth of something, total addressable market, how big it is, the solution they're solving, is it going to have a lot of people interested in it? So there's a ton of stuff, but those are the top line stuff.
Very exciting. We end every episode by asking our guest how we can uplift them. This is a room full of uplifters who love to uplift other uplifters. Katie, we'll start with you again. How can we uplift you?
I love this question on our call. When people ask how they can help, I realize I never think about how someone can help me. Thank you for that. I love events, and I'm speaking on panels, and I connecting with people. So if you have opportunities to speak, I would love to be considered because it's something I feel passionate about. If you're interested in investing, I would love to talk to you because we do have our fund, but we also have individual deals. Even if it's not in us, I can always connect you directly to other entrepreneurs because through my angel portfolio, I'm working with a lot of people in women's health and things that need to come to life. I'm happy to chat in that way. So come see me if you're interested.
We started our business to make people smile. My favorite thing in the world to do is to go into the grocery store and sample my product and meet my customers in the moment of truth. I love it. I'm the little lady with like the hairnet on, spreading the word about our brand, letting people know we are women founded, letting people know we're New York based. All of our dairy is from upstate New York. All of our manufacturing happens in New York. So we love to meet our customers. If you know someone, tell them to email me directly. I will answer. Thank you.
And buy it.
Follow us on TikTok.
Yeah. They make really great, joyful content. It doesn't have to just be cat videos when you're feeling down. You could watch hypnotic videos.
I'm raising as well. Always looking for great investors, or if you know people, particularly family offices who are interested in sports, media, entertainment. Also, I do special purpose vehicles, so smaller checks, for different deals. The company that I just mentioned going to do an SPV to bring in people who can write a smaller minimum. Spread the word about what's going on in women's sports. My hope is that we'll have a female. We kind of have that with Serena Williams, definitely, but more people like LeBron James or Steph Curry who are media brands. They made their wealth playing sports, and now they're doing stuff outside of sports. Alex Rodriguez, like Magic Johnson. I want women creating like these kind of empires. First thing is that the leagues have to pay them. Then they're doing all these business things, and we need to support them. And so a shift of wealth is coming to women. Women have to start using our money the way men do and investing in things that we want to see in the world, because it's up to us. We gotta get.
Yes. I can't tell you all how much I appreciate you having this honest conversation with us. My hope is that this lights a fire under all of us to remember to invest in what we believe in, to lift each other up as a community, but also other women who need our money, need our support in a very active way. Uplifting is not a passive practice. It is our words, our relationships, it is our money. And we get to create the future through our actions. Thanks for watching the Uplifters podcast. If this inspired you, hit subscribe and tap the bell to stay uplifted. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs a little lift today. Big love.
Painted water sunshine with rosemary and thyme. Dwell in the perplexing, though you find it vexing. Toss a star and hover, be your own best lover. Relish in a new prime, plant a tree in springtime. Dance with idle hindsight, bring the sun to twilight.